There's a famous experiment in biology that most people have heard, but very few have truly understood. If you place a frog into a pot of boiling water, it will leap out immediately. The danger is obvious, the pain is instant, the frog survives. But if you place that same frog into a pot of cool, comfortable water and then raise the temperature 1 degree at a time, something remarkable and tragic happens. The frog does not leap. The frog adjusts. The frog adapts. The frog sits there, comfortable at each degree, completely unaware that the water around it is slowly, systematically, and with perfect mathematical precision, cooking it alive. I want you to think about your salary, not what it says on your paycheck, not the number you tell people at dinner parties when they ask how you are doing. I want you to think about what your salary is actually doing to you. I want you to think about it the way a physicist thinks about a system, the way an engineer examines a machine, the way I, after 7 decades of studying money and human behavior, have come to understand it. Your salary is the water in that pot, and it has been rising 1 comfortable degree at a time since the day you signed your first employment contract. Now, I want to be very clear about something before we go any further. I am not here to tell you that work is wrong. I am not here to tell you that employment is evil or that your employer is your enemy. Some of the finest people I have ever met build extraordinary careers inside organizations, and I spent years working for others before I understood the difference between a good job and a safe trap. No, what I am here to tell you is something more dangerous, more subtle, and more important than a simple attack on corporate life. I am here to tell you that a salary, by its very design, by its very psychological architecture, creates 5 specific conditions in your life that will quietly, politely, and with your complete consent destroy the trajectory of your financial future. Nitrogen swore these are not dramatic catastrophes. There is no single moment when you lose everything. There is no crash. There is no fire. There is no announcement. There is just the slow, steady rise of the temperature in the pot. And if you are not watching for the signals, you will never leap. Today, we are going to examine those 5 signals. We are going to look at the physics of what a salary does to a human being over time. We are going to pull back the curtain on the most politely accepted financial trap in the history of modern civilization. And then, and this is the part that most people never reach because they stop reading when it gets uncomfortable, we are going to talk about how to leap. But first, you have to be willing to feel the heat. Let us begin. Signal 1, the cost of living ceiling. In physics, there is a concept called thermal equilibrium. It describes what happens when 2 systems at different temperatures are placed in contact with each other. Energy flows from the hotter system to the cooler system until they reach the same temperature. At that point, the flow stops. The system is balanced, stable, perfectly, dangerously still. Your salary creates thermal equilibrium with your cost of living. And I want you to understand what that means with mathematical precision, because most people feel this happening to them and never have the language to describe it. When you receive a salary, your brain, being the magnificent and deeply irrational instrument that it is, does not treat that money as a tool. It treats it as a boundary. It treats the number on your paycheck as a definition of your life. Within 6 to 18 months of receiving a new income level, your spending, your commitments, your lifestyle, your habits, and your obligations will expand to fill that space completely. The apartment gets a little nicer, the car gets a little newer, the restaurants get a little better, the subscriptions multiply, the wardrobe updates, the vacations extend from 5 days to 8. None of these changes feel irresponsible. Each one viewed in isolation is completely reasonable. You earned more, so you spend a little more. This is what people do. This is what people are expected to do. This is, in fact, what the entire consumer economy is designed to encourage you to do. But here is the trap that nobody explains at the dinner table or in the financial management class you never took in school. When your spending thermally equilibrates with your salary, your savings rate does not grow when your salary grows. Your savings rate stays approximately the same, which means the gap between where you are and where wealth actually begins does not close. It just gets more expensive to maintain. Let me give you a number to hold in your mind. I have watched this pattern across decades and across cultures and across income brackets. The average person who earns $30,000 a year and the average person who earns $90,000 a year have something deeply disturbing in common. They are both at the end of each month within a few $100s of zero. The person earning $30,000 feels poor. The person earning $90,000 does not feel poor. The person earning $90,000 feels like they are winning. They have the house, the car, the holidays, the good clothes, the nice phone. They feel like they are succeeding. But both of them are, in the most financially meaningful sense of the word, broke. Both of them would be in serious trouble within 90 days of losing their income. Both of them are entirely dependent on the continuation of a paycheck they do not control. The salary did not liberate them. The salary simply upgraded the cage. Now, I want to tell you something about how I think about this and how Charlie Munger thinks about this, because it is the inversion that changes everything. The question most people ask when they get a raise is, what can I do with this extra money? And that is the thermal equilibrium trap springing shut in real time. The question the wealthy ask when income increases is simpler and more brutal. What if I pretend this raise never happened? Charlie and I have lived in houses we could have upgraded decades ago. We eat meals we could have made more elaborate long ago. We drive cars that make people uncomfortable because the gap between what we have and what we could have is so visible and so large. But that gap is not stubbornness. That gap is not performance or theater for public consumption. That gap is the engine of compounding. That gap is where wealth lives. The first signal that your salary is killing your future is this: you cannot feel the gap between your income and your spending. You cannot feel the distance. It is closed. The water is at equilibrium and you are sitting in the pot, comfortable and still. If your lifestyle costs within 80% of whatever you currently earn, you are in the trap. If a pay cut of 30% would require you to make dramatic changes to survive, you are in the trap. If you cannot point to a growing pool of capital that you do not touch and do not spend and do not think of as emergency funds, you are in the trap. The solution is not complicated. The solution is painful. You have to artificially and deliberately and permanently resist thermal equilibrium. You have to choose to keep your lifestyle cold while your income gets hot. You have to build a gap and protect it like it is the most important thing you own. Because it is. Every dollar that lives in that gap is a soldier that goes to work for you. Every dollar that lives inside your lifestyle is a prisoner, a consumer, a liability in disguise. Build the gap. Feel the discomfort of the gap. That discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. That discomfort is the sound of wealth accumulating. Signal 2, the loyalty illusion. I want to tell you a story about a concept that economists call the sunk cost fallacy, but that I think of in simpler, more human terms. Imagine you buy a ticket to a sporting event. You paid $150. On the day of the game, you wake up with a terrible cold. Your throat is raw. Your head is pounding. It is raining outside. The drive is 45 minutes each way. Every rational signal in your body is telling you to stay home, rest, and recover. But you go anyway. Why? Because you paid for the ticket. Because the money is already spent. Because going to the game feels like honoring the investment and staying home feels like wasting it. But here is the economic truth that cuts through the emotion. The ticket money is gone. It does not come back whether you attend or not. The only real question is, what will make you feel better today? And the answer is obvious: rest, recovery, health. But you go anyway, feeling terrible, in the rain, watching a game you cannot enjoy, because the past has captured your present decision making. This is what decades of service to a single employer does to your financial psychology. You give a company 5 years, then 10, then 15. With every year that passes, two things happen simultaneously. First, your market value, your actual worth to other organizations, your transferable skills, and your demonstrated ability to create value in new environments begins to atrophy, not entirely, not immediately, but the specialization that made you valuable inside one specific organization sometimes makes you less legible to the outside world. Second, and this is the more dangerous of the two, your psychological attachment to the organization grows. You have invested yourself. You know the culture, you know the people, you know where the bathrooms are and which meetings can be skipped and which politics must be navigated carefully. You have spent real years of your finite life building that knowledge, and your brain, running its sunk cost calculation in the background without your conscious participation, begins to treat those years as a reason to stay, even when staying is economically irrational. I have seen this pattern in every sector, in every generation, in every country where the modern employment relationship exists. The person who has been with the company for 12 years and earns $80,000, and across town, someone with 8 years of experience and slightly less institutional knowledge is earning $115,000 at a competing firm. That gap is real. That gap compounds annually. That gap over a 20-year career represents hundreds of thousands of dollars in transferred wealth from the worker to the organization. But the 12-year employee does not leave. Why not? Because of the loyalty illusion. Now, let me be precise about what I mean by illusion, because I am not suggesting that loyalty is a valueless thing. I have built my entire career, my entire reputation on a foundation of integrity and long-term relationships. I believe in loyalty deeply and without reservation. But there is a profound difference between loyalty as a freely chosen value and loyalty as a psychological trap. Genuine loyalty flows in both directions. When I am loyal to the businesses I own, those businesses are loyal to me through their performance, their cash flows, their sustained competitive advantages. The relationship is reciprocal. The employment relationship has been fundamentally restructured over the past 4 decades in ways that most salaried employees have not fully processed emotionally. The defined benefit pension, the promise that long service would be rewarded with guaranteed retirement income, has largely been replaced by the defined contribution plan, which is a polite transfer of investment risk from the employer to the employee. The implicit social contract that said serve us well for 30 years and we will take care of you has been quietly rewritten. What replaced it is the language of team, the language of culture, the language of mission. Organizations learned that if they could make employees feel like they were part of something meaningful, part of a family, part of a movement, they could capture commitment without offering the compensation that genuine loyalty would command. The most sophisticated organizations in the world are extraordinarily good at this. I am not calling it evil. I am calling it rational behavior on the part of organizations who are, correctly from their perspective, trying to acquire the most human capital at the lowest possible cost. What I am calling on you to do is to be equally rational about your own position. You are not a family member, you are a vendor. I want you to hear that not as cynicism, but as liberation. Because the moment you understand that you are a vendor, you understand that you have the right and in fact the obligation to charge a fair price for what you provide. You would not allow a retail shop to sell your products indefinitely without ever raising the price. You would not continue supplying a manufacturer at the same rate year after year while your production costs increased and their profits grew. You would renegotiate. You would evaluate alternatives. You would make decisions based on value exchange rather than sentiment. The second signal that your salary is quietly killing your future is this. You have been with your current employer long enough that loyalty has become a reason you have not examined your market value lately. You have not applied for another position in more than 2 years. You have not had a serious salary conversation in more than 18 months. You have not calculated the actual financial cost of staying compared to the realistic financial benefit of moving. The fix is not necessarily to leave. It is to know. It is to run the numbers. It is to treat yourself as the vendor you are and ensure that the transaction is genuinely fair, because if you do not price yourself, someone else will, and they will price you at the lowest number you will accept. Signal 3, the lifestyle inflation anchor. In the science of anchoring, which is one of the most powerful and least discussed forces in behavioral economics, a single reference point can determine all subsequent decisions in ways that feel completely rational but are in fact deeply irrational. Here's a simple illustration. Researchers once asked 2 groups of people to estimate the percentage of African nations that were members of the United Nations. Before asking, they spun a wheel. For one group, the wheel landed on 10. For the other group, it landed on 65. These numbers were completely random. Everyone knew they were random. It did not matter. The group that saw 10 guessed an average of 25%. The group that saw 65 guessed an average of 45%. A random number, meaningless by every rational measure, shifted the subsequent estimate by 20 full percentage points. Your salary is your financial anchor. It determines your reference point for what feels like a reasonable life. It calibrates your sense of what is normal. It shapes your perception of what you deserve, what you need, what constitutes a setback, and what constitutes progress. And here's the most insidious part of this mechanism. The anchor does not just shape your current spending. It shapes the floor of your future spending. It shapes the baseline below which you feel like you are suffering a deprivation. When you earn $30,000 a year, $40,000 feels like wealth. When you earn $60,000 a year, $40,000 feels like a step backward, like poverty, like failure. When you earn $120,000 a year, $60,000 feels like a crisis. The anchor has moved, and the anchor never moves down willingly. This is why salary increases feel so good in the short term and are so economically destructive in the long term when they are not accompanied by deliberate, intentional, almost militant resistance to lifestyle inflation. Every raise you have accepted and spent has raised your financial floor. Every lifestyle upgrade you have normalized has increased the minimum cost of your life. Every subscription, every square foot of housing, every luxury that became a habit rather than a treat has calcified into an anchor that now holds you in place as surely as if it were made of iron and dropped into the ocean. Let me show you what this costs in real numbers, because I want you to feel the weight of this anchor. Imagine two people starting careers at the same salary, 28 years old, earning $50,000 a year. Person A receives a raise to $65,000 at age 32. She immediately upgrades her apartment by $800 a month, updates her car, adds 3 new subscriptions, and begins taking 2 international holidays a year instead of 1 domestic one. Her savings rate stays at approximately 10%. Person B receives the same raise at the same time. He keeps his apartment, he keeps his car, he keeps his holidays. His savings rate rises from 10% to 33%. By age 50, assuming moderate investment returns and no extraordinary events, the difference in accumulated wealth between these two people is not the difference between their salaries. Their salaries were identical. The difference is the difference between 2 lifetimes. Person A has a comfortable life and a genuine anxiety about retirement, a nagging sense that 65 is coming faster than the money is accumulating. Person B has the same income, the same professional story, but a fundamentally different financial position. He has options, he has time, he has the ability to take risks, to make choices, to absorb setbacks without catastrophe. The third signal that your salary is slowly killing your future is this: you cannot easily describe the last significant lifestyle reduction you made voluntarily, not out of crisis, not out of necessity, voluntarily, as a strategy. If you have been moving your lifestyle anchor in only one direction for the past 3 or 5 or 10 years, the anchor is doing its work. The water temperature is rising, and you have adjusted to each degree so smoothly that you no longer feel the heat. The practice required to defeat the anchor is what I sometimes call deliberate lifestyle asymmetry. Your lifestyle must grow more slowly than your income, not slightly more slowly, dramatically more slowly. The gap between your income curve and your lifestyle curve is the only real measure of your financial progress. Every other number, the salary figure, the job title, the house value, the car model, is theater. The gap is the game. Signal 4, the time poverty spiral. There is a concept in economics called opportunity cost. It is the idea that every choice you make carries with it an invisible cost, which is the value of the best alternative you gave up by making that choice. When you choose to spend Saturday afternoon watching a sporting event, the opportunity cost is not the price of the ticket. The opportunity cost is the value of whatever else you could have done with those hours. If those hours could have been spent learning a skill that would increase your income by $20,000 a year, the cost of the sporting event is not the ticket price. The cost is $20,000 a year compounded over every year for the rest of your working life. Most people think about money in terms of what it costs. The wealthy think about time in terms of what it costs. But here is the cruel irony that a salary introduces into this equation. A salary is by design compensation for time. It is not compensation for outcomes. It is not compensation for creativity. It is not compensation for leverage or innovation or system building. It is compensation for presence, for availability, for hours rendered. And the moment you accept that framing, the moment your income becomes structurally tied to your time, you enter what I call the time poverty spiral. Here is how it works. You need more money. This is a universal condition. The thermal equilibrium we discussed in the first signal has ensured that your expenses approach your income, so you always feel the pressure of needing more. You have exactly 2 paths to more money within the salary structure. Path 1, work more hours, take on more responsibility, accept the extended project, say yes to the weekend ask, rise earlier and stay later. This path delivers marginally more money, but at a cost that is rarely calculated and never compensated: your time. Path 2, wait for a raise, perform well, be visible, be appreciated, be patient, hope that the review cycle and the organizational budget and the manager's advocacy and the competitive market all align favorably in your direction. This path may or may not deliver more money, but it delivers it slowly, usually in increments that trail inflation, and it requires you to make your financial future dependent on a cascade of organizational decisions over which you have minimal control. Both paths keep you inside the salary structure. Both paths keep your income tied to your time. And as long as your income is tied to your time, you are subject to a hard mathematical ceiling that no amount of ambition or skill or dedication can break through. I have made this point many times over the years, and I want to make it again here with full force. Time is the only asset that cannot be replenished. Every other resource in the economy can be regenerated. Money lost can be earned back. Knowledge forgotten can be relearned. Relationships damaged can be repaired. Health undermined can sometimes be restored. Time spent cannot be revisited. It moves in one direction. It moves at a fixed rate. It does not accelerate during the good years or slow during the years when you need it most. If your income model requires trading time for money, you are spending the one asset that is genuinely and permanently finite. You are liquidating something you cannot replace in exchange for something that can be generated by mechanisms that do not require your hours. This is the economic tragedy of the employee trap at its deepest level. The solution is not simply to work smarter, which is advice so vague as to be meaningless. The solution is to begin building, alongside the salary, alongside the time for money model, a parallel income structure that does not require your hours to generate its returns. This is what wealthy people understand that salaried people do not. The wealthy do not make more money per hour. The wealthy make money from structures that generate returns whether or not an hour is spent. A business that you own generates revenue when you are sleeping. A portfolio of invested assets generates returns on the weekend. Intellectual property generates royalties without your ongoing participation. A rental property generates income while you are on vacation. These are not exotic financial instruments available only to people who are already wealthy. These